Imagine being just 10 years old, handed a 6-foot-long weapon nearly as tall as you, your hands raw and bleeding, your back aching from hours of grueling practice. And all anyone tells you is, again, this wasn't sport. It wasn't a hobby. It was survival. Welcome to the life of a medieval archer. Physically brutal, mentally shattering, and soul-warping in ways most of us can't even imagine. And if you think the training was the worst part, just wait till we tell you what they did with their spare bowstrings. Seriously, you will be stunned when we tell you about him at the end of this video. Trained from birth. Being an archer in medieval England wasn't a career you chose. It was a life chosen for you, by royal decree. Kings didn't just suggest archery training, they commanded it. By law, every able-bodied male between 7 and 60 had to practice the longbow every single Sunday after church. Miss practice? That's a fine. Miss again? Stocks. Repeat offender? Let's just say your bow wouldn't be the only thing getting stretched. From the time they could stand, boys were handed training bows almost their own height and forced to fire them hundreds of times until their fingers split, their muscles burned, and their complaints were drowned out by a simple command. Again, forget toys. Your playtime was lifting stones, pulling ropes, and building freakish upper body strength that warped your skeleton. Literally. Today, archaeologists have dug up archer remains with bizarre deformities. Left arms 50% thicker than right ones, twisted spines, and fingers bent into permanent claws. The longbow didn't just change your body, it took it over. By 16, the lucky few who survived this brutality could fire up to 12 arrows per minute with deadly accuracy across 200 yards. Their fingers? So calloused that even needles couldn't pierce them. But that was just the beginning. The bow that broke men. To outsiders, the English longbow looked like a simple weapon, a bent stick, a cord. What could be so hard? Everything. Standing up to 6 feet 6 inches tall, crafted from dense yew wood, the longbow was deceptively light, just 3 to 5 pounds. But that wasn't the weight that broke you. It was the draw force, 90 to 180 pounds of raw pulling power. Imagine dragging a struggling pit bull backward with 3 fingers, then do it 400 times. That's what an archer might do in a single afternoon. There was no trick, no clever technique, just muscle, grit, and tolerance for pain. And the toll was unimaginable. Skeletons show compressed vertebrae, enlarged arms, and joint decay. One archer was buried with massive bone spurs on his drawing hand. So bad, scientists thought he'd suffered some rare disease. Nope, just archery. And still, they kept shooting. Because not shooting meant not eating, not surviving. War on your back. You'd think carrying a bow and some arrows would be light work. You'd be wrong. A fully kitted archer could haul 60 to 80 pounds of gear. Think of it as a medieval soldier's backpack, except it wasn't optional, and it never got lighter. Arrows alone weighed up to 12 pounds, 60 to 100 of them, stashed not in sleek back quivers like Hollywood suggests, but stuffed into boots, hip pouches, or jabbed straight into the ground for speed. One slip, one tangle, and your own arrows could trip you mid-fight. Bowstrings? Rain ruined them. Hemp or flax strings stretched when wet. That meant every smart archer carried at least 3 backups. Where did they keep them? Wrapped under helmets, tucked into cloaks, and in some cases inserted into less sanitary body crevices. When your life depends on a dry string, modesty dies. Armor? Think padded quilts soaked in sweat and rain. Chainmail if you were lucky. And boots? Thin leather, no soles. When they wore out, you wrapped your feet in cloth or scavenged from corpses. Food? Hard bread you had to soak before it cracked your teeth. Water? Questionable. Sleep? Dirt floor? Bugs optional. By the time the battle came, archers were already half dead, marching to death. Now imagine marching 20 to 30 miles a day carrying all that gear. Every day. No rest stops, no paved roads, just dirt, mud, rocks, and blisters. Fire? Banned. Too risky. So breakfast was cold, so was lunch, and dinner if it came at all. Rain turned everything into hell, wet gear weighed more. Wet string meant no shooting. Some armies simply stopped moving when storms hit. Maps were barely more than scribbles. Guides got lost. Terrain broke ankles. Heat meant sunstroke. Cold meant frostbite. Archers toughened their feet by walking on gravel, rubbing them with salt and vinegar. That wasn't tradition. That was survival. And still, they marched. Not because they wanted to, but because stopping meant you might miss the battle. And worse, your pay. Archery is war machine. If they made it to battle, that's when the longbow unleashed its real power. A single archer could fire 10 to 12 arrows per minute. Multiply that by 100, or thousanders. Now imagine 6,000 English archers at once. That's 60,000 arrows a minute. You didn't walk into that. You didn't run into that. You prayed, and then you died. Archer formations weren't just long lines. They were deadly geometry. They curved slightly, letting volleys converge at lethal angles. A curved line meant the enemy got hit from three sides, front and both flanks. Commanders placed archers on hills, behind forests, with the sun in the enemy's eyes. Every factor was planned: wind, terrain, elevation, even morale. Infantry shot until they broke. Cavalry met with stakes driven into the ground, surprise impalement while arrows picked off the riders. Each war arrow could pierce 4 inches of oak. Chainmail might as well be parchment. Even plate armor had weak spots, and archers knew exactly where to aim. And they never fired blindly. Horns, drums, flags, orders passed not by voice, but rhythm, a medieval symphony of destruction. But even the deadliest archer eventually hits zero. So here's the question. What would you do? When the arrows are gone, the enemy breaks through, and now you're face to face with a sword-wielding knight who wants revenge. When bows become clubs, archers weren't trained for close combat, but they fought anyway. Dagger, axe, hammer, whatever they had. Sometimes their bows became makeshift staffs, used to trip, block, or bash. Some even modified bows with metal tips, so they could be stabbed after they were snapped. Desperate times, desperate weapons. Knights had training, armor, swords, and rage. Archers had exhaustion, padded jackets, and sheer will. One chronicler called it a mouse fighting a lion. Another said archers didn't fight, they survived. And sometimes they didn't, or didn't want to. Some cut off fingers to avoid being sent back. That tells you everything you need to know. The worst wounds came after. If arrows didn't kill you and blades didn't finish the job, medieval medicine tried its best. Arrow wounds were horrifying. Surgeons tried to extract them with iron tools. Some succeeded, others made it worse. Cauterization was done with red-hot irons if you were lucky. Stitching, boar bristles, horsehair, and zero sterilization. Infections were constant. Cross-contamination was common. Field hospitals were swamps of pus, straw, and flies. One cure involved animal dung and honey, another, prayer. And pain relief? If you didn't get opium, you got a stick to bite and a priest to whisper final words. The truth? Most wounds didn't heal, they festered, paid in ale and dust. Let's talk money. An archer earned 6 pence per day during war. Sounds decent, but that bought you 2 gallons of ale, or 1 good meal. That's it. Between battles, no pay. During campaigns, delayed pay, and often, no pay at all. So archers looted. Boots, coins, weapons, horses. If it wasn't nailed down, it was battlefield bonus. And still, many died poor. Old tax records show former archers living as beggars, cobblers, even gravediggers. One was buried in a pauper's grave after decades of war. A few lucky ones got land. Most got nothing. One even severed his own draw hand after injury, just to avoid starvation. Loved by kings, feared by priests. Medieval society didn't know what to do with archers. Too effective to ignore, too lowborn to admire. The church hated them. Papal edicts called archery unchristian, especially when used on other Christians. Some archers donated to churches out of guilt. Others just hoped St. Peter had a soft spot for killer aim. Nobles called them cheats, because a peasant with a longbow could kill a lord in seconds. Villagers feared them. Many had looted, killed, and seen horror. Towns passed laws to keep archers in check. They were legends in war, ghosts in peace. They trained like beasts, marched like mules, fought like machines, and died like shadows. So we ask again, could you survive as a medieval archer? Not just the battles, but the disease, the pain, the poverty. The knowledge that even if you survived, no one would remember your name? If you made it this far, you've already done better than most recruits ever did. Let us know in the comments, would you rather stand with the archers or face them? And before you go, remember the man we mentioned at the start? He was buried in a mass grave near Towton, bones twisted, spine compressed, one hand so deformed it looked like coral. Scientists thought it was a birth defect. It wasn't. He was just an archer, and this was his life. Subscribe for more history that hits harder than a war bow.